is up, people? It's on Secret Productions and quality control. Who needs it? Now let's begin with saying that I really wanted to like this thing a lot more. Don't get me wrong, however, I still like it to a point, but I've got nothing clever to say. But anyways, let's jump straight into my review on the Transformers Legacy Prime Universe Leader Class Skyquake. And in the usual Legacy Leader fashion, this guy comes packaged in alternate mode. So right away, I will definitely praise the jet mode, which is definitely one of the best parts about this figure. So this jet is apparently supposed to be a modified version of the F-35 Lightning II, you know, that new 5th gen fighter that the US Navy is apparently using. And I have to assume that it's the C variant because A, there's no Stavel unlike the F-35B, the wings are huge unlike the F-35A, and also the wingtips are on hinges like the jets you'd see on aircraft carriers. However, this is one major stylization of the F-35 because there are basically no air intakes, the vertical and horizontal stabilizers are hilariously downsized, there's canards for some reason, this thing has 3 engines, 2 seats, and I don't know about you, but I don't believe the F-35 is this big. I find it ironic because the F-35 is one of the smaller jets you'd see on carriers. And what I've sort of seen with this is basically flying an F-15 Eagle for being of such proportion compared to the cockpit. Now, as far as cable management, the only real issue is the legs just being as obvious as literally any other official jet former, and maybe these gaps in the side. So sure, it may not look the most aerodynamic thing we've seen from Hasbro, but thankfully it's not Legacy Blitzwing level support cable management in the jet mode. And hell, even the side profile looks moderately aerodynamic, just ignore the feet. And unlike Legacy Blitzwing, which basically relied on the entire other alternate mode to vaguely pretend as landing gear, Skyquake actually has a full set of retractable landing gear. And even as a little bonus, there's an opening cockpit with the previously mentioned 2 seats. Of course, this jet mode isn't going to really scale with anything else like most jet formers. Like, if this isn't already comparison enough, that's supposed to be a MiG-25. This is supposed to be an F-35. And just for the fun of it, here's Studio Series Concept Art Sunstreaker, which somebody's supposed to fit into that and in there. Sure. So bottom line, this is one of the better jet modes I've seen in mainline and even some Masterpiece Transformers recently. I'm looking at you, MBM Starscream. It compresses rather well, looks moderately aerodynamic, and has some of those little bonus features that I previously mentioned. Now moving on to Skyquake accessories, he comes with this completely clear amber sword, which does look a little bit dinky. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Skyquake never used a sword in Transformers Prime unlike his cooler brother Dreadwing. However, something he definitely did use is this underslung machine gun, which is a little bit undersized as well. And I'm not sure, but I thought this barrel was supposed to turn because of these seams, like you're gonna be able to see that. Either it's not supposed to turn, or it's just really stiff on my copy. And as far as storage, first of all, you can fold up the sword, which mine already has stress marks and it's cracked. Love that. But you can store the sword in this cavity in the underside of the machine gun, and you can also do it this way as well, which I find this is a more snug fit and it sits a lot more flush. But to be honest, calling this Evo Fusion I feel is a little bit of a stretch, but there are several 5mm ports scattered all over the jet mode, so you can plug it into either the robot mode backside, the wingtips, or these ports on the top of the wings if you really wanted to, all of which look ridiculous in this mode. So as far as accessories, Skyquake comes with everything that I think he needed, and it even comes with something more meant for Dreadwing more than anything, and I'm not complaining. Okay, now in my traditional style, I'm not going to walk you through the transformation, however, I'm going to show you where everyone who owns at least one version of this mold is having issues. So anyway, transformation time! So everybody who owns Skyquake and or Dreadwing has been having issues with compressing the nose cone all the way, myself included when I first got this thing. I kid you not, I was struggling for 5 hours trying to get this thing compressed right while I was talking with my good buddy Blooper Dolphin, but I finally figured it out, thank you to MGO and those countless tutorials on the TFW 2005 forums. So at first with those, oh well you have to do it in this specific order thing, I personally thought that was a bunch of bull at first, but looking a little bit deeper into how the transformation actually works, I understand it a little bit better now. So what you're going to want to do, first of all, is to get minding the shoulder pads and the wings and all this kibble. You just get this pushed down as far as it'll go. Then you want to compress the nose cone, which this is really tight. I usually tend to push on this gray hinge, and you just push that, and it does take a lot of force, but it's manageable. But it does get a little bit uncomfortable, but now you see it sits as flush as it needs to go. And again, minding the wings and the shoulder pads, which are really annoying, especially around this time of the transformation. You should, in theory, be able to, there you go, now you can see it. You should be able to clip that in. And now, getting this guy all back together, I'll talk about those in a second. Get all of this maneuvered around. Shoulder pads over his shoulders. Then you want to make sure the cockpit piece sticks out from the back, like you see there. Clip together the back, and now this should be able to tab in, and now you have Skyquake properly transformed into robot mode. So after an honestly not that fun transformation, the robot mode looks nice. From what I could tell, this is a blend of a couple of his past designs. It's obviously his prime design first and foremost, with the green, the wings, and these massive shoulders. But there's also a few hints of his G1 design with the chest piece, and I want to say the head crest, and maybe the crotch vent. And unlike the unfortunate disaster piece that is the Legacy Prime Universe RC, this version of the Quake Man finds a nice middle ground where he stays rather true to his prime roots without being so egregiously stylized. Sure, it's a little bit more blocky than his more rounded and jagged-edged prime counterpart. While it may not be everyone's cup of tea, which to each their own, but I've gotta be honest, I think this works. And that face, for how little we see of it, it looks really nice. And again, it's a nice blend of G1 and Transformers Prime. It's just unfortunate for how much of a waste this guy was in Transformers Prime. Moving on, Skyquake can wield his weapons as a disposable one-episode cannon fodder warrior should. However, the sword has this line of plastic on the handle, so he can only hold it in his left hand, whatever the reason, and it already feels a bit too small in his hand, so... But I don't really bother, because the machine gun is the main thing here, which has a handle at the back, and this hinges on a ball joint so you can get him to hold it the hound way, if you will. Now, another issue with this guy is that since he has no heels, it can be a bit of a chore to stand him up. And the fact that he's a little bit more back heavy and the limited articulation in his feet doesn't help either. That and the shoulders have no locking points, so you just have to hope that his articulation just doesn't automatically dislocate his arm. That and the unnecessary ratchet joints. The left shoulder is okay, if a little bit squeaky, but the right shoulder was especially bad when it comes down, as it tended to slightly flex the plastic at the shoulder joint. Unnecessary ratchet joints, as well as those where I wish there were a few more stopping points like those at the hips. Now, this is more an issue with the transformation if the nose cone wasn't already an inconvenience enough, but the clearances in the torso are at a bare minimum, especially in regards to the wings, the nose cone, and definitely the shoulder pads. All of those factored into the transformation, which in itself is already not the most fun. The lack of clearance just makes the transformation not that fun to do, and definitely when you're doing it for the first time. And just a minor thing that doesn't really bother me is the light piping barely works. To be honest, again, I really wanted to like Skyquake a lot more than I do, but with all the issues he has in robot mode, it's been a bit difficult for me to like this guy more. Again, do not get me wrong, I still find things to like about this guy, but the issues do really weigh the figure down in its general quality. But hey, I got this guy for $35, so I'm not really complaining. Now let's cover the articulation. So there's a ball joint at the head with a decent range of movement. The head can rotate the full 360. He can look up, but not down, and basically no head pivot to speak of. Shoulder pads are on a swivel, double hinge, and a ball joint at the shoulder pad proper to accommodate for the arm rotation, which can rotate the full 360. Previously mentioned squeaky outward movement, bicep swivel, which hopefully doesn't activate the double jointed elbow with a pretty good range of movement, wrist swivel, waist swivel with a slightly wibbly torso, ratcheting legs which can move forward that far, can move back that far, ratcheting splits, thigh swivel, double jointed knee with great range of movement. Unfortunately, no up or down at the feet, which is something that this figure really needed, but he does have an ankle tilt, the transformation joint at the toe, and the heels are on hinges for The articulation on Skyquake is definitely plentiful, but due to his design, some of it is going to be hindered, but he still has most of the articulation he needs, and is really posable, but it's still a bit of a chore to stand him up and get him into anything moderately dynamic. And again, I really wish he had up and down at the feet. More Legacy leaders need this, honestly. Blitzwing doesn't have it, Armada Megatron doesn't have it, Toxitron doesn't have it, and yet most of the new leaders in Studio Series have this, in my opinion, important point of articulation. What the hell? Anyways, moving on past my complaints on articulation, let's move on to the size comparisons with Skyquake, as he should be, is large, but not really in charge. Here's Legacy Leader Skyquake compared next to the Figma Kyoko Sakura and Saikamiki, Figma Saber 2.0, Studio Series Dark of the Moon Shockwave, SH Monster Arts Bio Goji, MPM Barricade, New Age Mista, my last review Studio Series Scourge, Studio Series Concept Art Sunstreaker, and just for some later comparisons, Legacy Blitzwing, Armada Megatron, G2 Toxitron, Rise of the Beast Primal, Revenge of the Fallen Grindor, and the Fallen. Now, as far as the box goes, you get some artwork of Skyquake in both of his modes: Prime Universe Skyquake, Transformers Legacy Evolution, officially licensed Hasbro and Takara product. On this side, you get the Legacy artwork, plastic-free packaging, and of course, authentic Transformers. On the other side, you get Skyquake's mugshot, his jet mode, and some Cybertronian runes. On the top, Transformers Legacy Evolution. On the bottom, uses stuff in barcodes. And on the back, you get the product shots, Transformers at 29 steps, Evo Fusion, Needle Nose, Prime Universe Skyquake, Transformers, more than meets the eye. And so finally closing this review with my thoughts on Skyquake. He's fine. The figure is definitely riddled with several design flaws, which I feel maybe should have had a little bit more time to cook before being distributed, especially with that flawsome transformation. The jet mode, I basically have no complaints about, but the transformation in the robot mode are where I and many others have been having issues. I will definitely give this guy points for his overall looks. His articulation is rather loaded, and he comes with the main thing he needs and a nice little bonus. However, the flaws do weigh the figure down in its general quality, where I don't like it as much as I wanted to, but I don't absolutely despise it. But it's kind of close. But I've got to be honest, despite the issues, I still really want Dreadwing. Now, where can you purchase this guy, and the questionable choice in finance? I found this guy at my local Target recently, and he was only $35, so I thought, why not get this guy in the Concept Art Sunstreaker, which is a rather subjectively better figure, and I even saw Dragon Megatron and Concept Art Megatron, which I already have 6 Megatrons and 2 Primes, so I think I'm okay on them for now. But if you are going to get this figure, try getting on sale, because to me, he does not feel like $55 worth of action figure. You can get this figure off Amazon, Target, eBay, and anywhere else online if you really feel he's worth that much. Jesus, you people on AliExpress. As far as my recommendation, from what I've seen, this is one of the better figures of this character, but I would say get this guy only if you can find him on sale. Or if not, just get Dragon Megs or Concept Art Sunstreaker. I can only speak for Sunstreaker so far, and he is just that little bit better. But don't get me wrong, Skyquake isn't all doom and gloom. He still has his pros, but he still has a lot of cons. No pun not intended. So that officially concludes my review on the Transformers Legacy Leader Class Skyquake. And as always, I will see you all in my next video. Peace out!